I'll just be sitting. So, I'm about to... I don't know why you do that. Take your jacket off and put it back on. Every time. I'm about to do an interview with the BBC. Let's... if you're watching this, give it a share. Make sure as many people as possible get to see this interview. So we can see their actual agenda, so you can see their agenda, so people can see the agenda of the media, which is exactly why they're going to come here today to meet me. Well, you got that jacket as well?
Hey?
Why you got another jacket?
I saw Lily there. Hi, Han. Through that. Shut it.
There we go.
Cheers, Han.
Oh, maybe not. That's a library.
Oh, we went in. It was in there. No, it wasn't.
Library. Oh, thank you. No.
How are you doing?
Oh, there you go.
Thank you, honey. Thank you.
Oh, I'll just be sitting. How you doing, right?
Met years ago in Luton.
I think
Yeah, about like years.
10 years ago.
How you doing, Stuart?
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Yeah, good.
Hi, bud. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
How you doing, bud?
Hello.
You alright?
I'm Stuart.
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Stuart.
It's not massively complicated, Tommy.
Okay.
We still use the name Tommy. Is that basically what you go by? It's not massively complicated, but it's just a straightforward thing. You know, prosecution said this. This is the
Have you been in court a week?
yeah.
Because I'd like to ask you some questions about what I have said.
Yeah, we'll do. Well, I'll spell it out.
You sit there.
Okay. Well, we'll
Me here. Yes, please.
Me here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else which you'd like to do on the bits and pieces?
Basically, this guy Darren Osborne gets on social media about early June last year. He's kind of not done much social media stuff before. Doesn't seem like anyway. Certainly not any evidence before the court about he joins Twitter by 3rd of June. And he's immediately kind of googling Jada Franson. He's googling you. He's kind of looking around, and there's quite a lot of evidence of what he's searched for on 3 devices. It's basically a couple of phones and an iPad.
Stores and iPad.
Yeah, his daughter's iPad, daughter's phone, and his wife's phone. And
Nice.
quite soon he's settled in on checking every few days kind of what you're saying. So it's like Google's Tommy Robinson and reads some of the stuff. He gets himself, I think, on the Rebel Media email list, I think.
Yep.
Because this email which says from Tommy Robinson to Darren Osborne, there's like a screenshot. The next thing it is has one of those Rebel Media banner things.
Do you know why it was a screenshot? Well, do you know why they didn't show the email?
Because I think they've not got into his emails, I think.
So they haven't even got his emails.
Well, it's been chucked away or whatever. But you can see, to be honest with you, you know, you've seen the, you know, it's like a, it's.
I know exactly what you're on about.
You know these emails, and you know the one.
It was about Chelsea, right?
That's the second one, and the first one's
Was
the one
about
about
Manchester.
March.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you know?
And basically it says, and I'm sure this is how the automatic thing generates it, but it says, at the very top header, from Tommy Robinson to Darren Osborne, then there's the banner, and then it says, because presumably how the system generates it, Dear Darren, and then blah, 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 and at the end, yours truly, Tommy Robinson.
Yep.
So that's the thing, which is the direct communication.
That's the
from
direct communication.
from you to him. Yeah,
That,
exactly.
So, you know, in the opening of the trial, in the prosecution, did they say social media contact from Tommy Robinson?
Well, I don't think in the
When they started talking about me, did they say that there was so...
I don't think in the opening it was put in that way. When was the first time? Or maybe no, it was in the opening. And the way and again, there's been a lot of discussion in court about how it was put. You'll notice the way that I put it on that night is they're very clear about the direct message from Jada Franson on Twitter, and then they were less clear about this email. But because the email said, they didn't say whether it was an email or what else. They said a communication or something like that. And because it said, "Dear Darren," signed Tommy Robinson, that's why I used this loose phrase like a direct communication, because I was thinking, well, what is this? Is it like it turns out a group email.
Can I ask you, you know the Jada Franson, they said there was a direct Twitter message from Jada Franson.
Yeah.
Did they tell you what the direct Twitter message was?
And again, because what they've got is the notification which says you've received a message from Jada Franson, but they haven't got what the message was.
You see.
So I've been told.
So you've been told by who?
By the prosecution. I'm like, can I see this?
Well, my barrister went into court this week.
Oh yeah, we saw her on Wednesday or something. Yeah.
And they actually have got what Jada Franson sent. So why wouldn't they tell the media that?
Well, good question.
Why have they left it open so that it leaves suspicion over what that message from Jada Franson?
I presume it just says thanks for following or something.
That's exactly what it says. Yeah. It's an automated message that says thanks for following. Yeah. So the prosecution are fully aware that it's an automated message that says thanks for following, but yet they leave it open saying we don't know what the message said from Jada Franson to Darren Osborne. So that implies and looks like it says something very different in the build-up to a terror attack. This is but don't
forget the prosecution's case is not that Jada Franson is like giving him what to do or that you're somehow controlling him or whatever. The prosecution case is that he's reading this material and this material has fired him up. And I think
so the terrorist attack in Manchester, the terrorist attack in Westminster Bridge and the terrorist attack on London Bridge didn't fire him up. These messages and reading people's comments fired him up.
Listen, I don't want to put words in their mouths. I'm sure.
Unbelievable.
I'm sure then it's not that he was unaffected. Don't forget, it starts theoretically with this watching the three girls.
Watching the three girls, yeah. So and obviously he's
but the reason why they've focused in on this stuff
is to attach it to the far right. Well, in some way, it's for them to paint a picture.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's that's a kind of that can be your interpretation. Yeah. I, as a sort of bystander in the process, I think it's more about trying to show that the language that he uses in his note and in this when he's at the police station is kind of political language, because don't forget what they have to show is not that it's just murder, which they will get them a certain sentence.
So if it was just murder, so if they can involve us,
if it's a political murder, then he'll get more time. So what they're trying to do is to, and personally I think they're right. I think it was a political murder. I don't think there's any doubt. You've seen it. I don't know if you've seen his full note, but there's no doubt from his full note.
What was his note going about Jeremy Corbyn, wasn't it?
Well, I'll read it.
What I can't understand is if his note was going on, I haven't really seen headlines about that. All I've seen headlines about is me and Jada Franson. Well, mainly me. That's all I've seen because it's.
Yeah, don't forget you would notice stuff about you more as well. So this is what
did anywhere in court? Because the problem is for me is that someone being an automated email system is very different to someone receiving personal direct messages.
That's the purpose of this interview, and it's not actually, to be honest with you, to let you say that I didn't have any communication with him, but we can completely open up what the communication was. The question really is whether, looking back, the language you've used has affected him. That's really the question.
That's the question you've come to ask me.
Not the question as to whether you told him to do it or but whether you're worried or whether you have regrets or whatever. Let me read this.
If the prosecution didn't open up and involve me in this, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, which would
that's correct.
Which would not then give the BBC or any of these media channels the opportunity. I don't think
they would have had any opportunity not to involve you, because what they do in all of these terrorism cases is they produce the schedule of internet use by the person. And of all the internet use that they've got, that he does, that's, as it were, relevant to the attack,
How much they got?
they've got basically 2 weeks building up to the attack, which they've put before the jury. And all the relevant stuff, I'm sure he's also searching for, like, you know, camping equipment or whatever, but all the relevant stuff, half of it basically relates to you. He's searching for things for you, articles by you, da da da.
But
So
he's
reading your stuff.
He's searching for the truth of what's happening in our country.
Yeah, and
he's only going to get that from me.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that is your position. What he's reading is essentially stuff by you. So listen, this is what he writes. This is what he writes in the pub that night before the attack. Why are there terrorists on our streets today? We've had 3 recent terror attacks. Our children splattered against the walls of concerts. Part and parcel by all accounts, Mr. Sadiq Khan. That's that quote from, remember he said part and parcel to the Khan. So yeah. No, isn't it? No, it isn't. How can you let this happen? Terrorists marching through our capital city. That's to do with the Al-Quds March. You're a disgrace. Where was the public outrage after 1,400 of our white British non-Muslim girls? Where were you in Rotherham, Lily Allen, Jeremy Corbyn? Nowhere to be seen. Just thinking about how many more inbred migrants you can bring into the country. The local harbour map of Rotherham, Mr. Hussain, wrote, I don't know why it says harbour map, but wrote a character reference for one of the rapists in court. Really now, hang on a minute, am I missing anything here? Where was you all, Jez and Lil? Don't you fancy getting involved in that, the only protest within the Muslim community where when taxi drivers were asked to put CCTV in their cars? Seriously, you're taking the piss. Mr. Hussain has been promoted. Don't people get it? This is happening up and down our green and pleasant land. Feral, inbred, raping Muslim men hunting in packs, preying on our children. This will be coming to a town near you soon. It most probably has. Get back to the desert, you raping inbred bastards, and climb back on your camels. People don't be swayed by Corbyn in his free pack lunch and uni fees. Think of your children's future. Islam's ideology doesn't belong here, and neither does Sharia law. So, Mr. Sadiq Khan, how are you this morning? I imagine you're going to have a hard job keeping your happy-go-lucky, vibrant city in order. This is presumably thinking it's been read after. Part and parcel of living in a big city. Carry on as normal, okay? To your day jobs. What about you, Jez, Mr. Terrorist Sympathiser, or should I call you Harold, you dirty old man? Put that in your pipe and have some sympathy from me. Well, folks, got to get busy today. Remember, peaceful vigils only, and please don't look back in anger. God save the Queen. And prosecution.
What I don't understand is, so he hasn't mentioned me at all. In his reason why he's done it.
Absolutely not. No.
So in his reason why he's done it, he's not mentioned me at all. No. But here you are, you're about to ask me if somehow I feel some sort of reason for why he's done it.
Well, the question
he's just gave you every reason why he's done it. And every single thing he's told you there is factually correct about what's happened. You've got a councillor called Hussain who went and gave a character reference for the men who raped young kids. He's been rewarded by the Labour Party and he's been promoted. He actually works for the government on some anti-immigrant task force.
But the question is, this assembly of things that has fired him up sounds very similar to the things that you have been writing about.
No, that's what you're trying to do. He's just told you why he's done it. So, and yet he's told you all why he's done it.
Yeah.
Yet your media are not going to portray this as why he's done it. You're going to sit here with me and you're going to portray the fact that that an email was sent to him from Rebel Media that invited him on a peaceful, silent walk as the reason why he done it. That's what, and the whole prosecution has done this. That's what's happened here. It's being blamed on Jada. He's just told you word for word. Do you know the Al-Quds March that he spoke to you about?
Again. Okay. Who knows about the Al-Quds March?
Well, I know about the Al-Quds March, and they had terrorist organisation flags marching through our capital city.
Which, by the way, I know you know about because on the 14th of June, 3 days before he targets the attack, that's what you are tweeting about.
Yep.
And on the 13th of June.
So why
the question?
So the problem is,
how would he know about the Al-Quds March?
Oh, so the problem is that I've let people know what's happening. So because he's aware now.
Well, that's the.
If I wasn't here, if I wasn't about, he wouldn't be aware that terrorists are marched for our capital city. He wouldn't be aware that Mr. Hussain has been promoted for raping kids. He wouldn't be aware of any of these things. So the idea of this is,
and that is a very fair. That is a very fair. Way of putting it. There is a responsibility.
No, there's
language.
Not. There's a responsibility to give people the truth. Now, what the media have done for 20, 30, probably 40 years is hide the fact that gangs of Muslim men are taking young English girls and raping them. That's been hidden by you guys. Okay, you've all known about it. Everyone's known it's happening. The media have all known about it. Everyone in every town and city's known about it. We know that the police knew about it. We know councillors knew about it. Councillor Hussain went and gave a character reference from. We've known, all of you have known about it, and you've hid it. And the reason you've hid it, and now what the problem seems to be, is that Mr. Osborne has been told the truth. Every single thing there is factual, and somehow you want to plant some sort of responsibility on me for telling people the facts of what you're hiding.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It's insulting.
Well,
It's absolutely, your job as the journalist, you should be telling the public that Mr. Hussain has had a promotion. You should be telling all the people across the country when young girls are being taken as sexual slaves by men and used as
but how did you find out about the Rochdale and Rotherham incidents? It was probably in the first place from the media, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't, mate. No, the media only reported it because our organisation at the time...
But didn't the Times expose it?
No, yeah, the Times only exposed it because we were banging a drum and holding up signs saying, and telling everyone you're raping our kids.
Yeah, no.
I'll tell you how I knew about it, because our second cousin was taken off the streets and raped and taken as a sexual slave by Muslim men in our town. So that's how I know about it. And then I travelled the country meeting other families. Now at the time, what the media done and what you've done when we tried to talk about it, is you all called us racist and extremists. Now, what he's done, so if what you're getting at is the fact that the things he's talking about is what I've let him know, I am never ever going to sit here and apologise for letting the British public know the lengths and depths that Islam is destroying our towns and cities. I'm never going to apologise for that, because it's the truth. Your job's to report the truth. You should be doing that. The only reason why my media profile had 49 million video views and 193 million people read my tweets is because they're searching for the truth. The only reason why Darren Osborne has searched for Tommy Robinson is because he wants the truth. You're not bringing him that. You are hiding the rape of a generation of children in our country. That's what the media have done. You are hiding the terrorists. You're hiding everything. Like for example, the Finsbury Park Mosque. After he done this attack, yeah, I researched the mosque. I found out that one of Hamas's lead men, who's a terrorist, Hamas are a prescribed terrorist organisation, was at the head of that mosque. Not
yeah,
one.
It was Muslim Welfare House that he actually targeted.
Yeah, I'm talking about Finsbury Park Mosque. Yeah. Not one of you, as in the media, reported that. Why not? Why, when this has happened, why have none of you reported that Hamas, a prescribed terrorist organisation, the people who are in control of it are in control of the Finsbury Park Mosque? And do you know what happens? What you report, this is what you report, the Muslim Brotherhood, they do a little PR campaign and they give the mosque an award for moderation. Then you report that. So you report Finsbury Park Mosque with an award for moderation by the local council, which is Labour, Jeremy Corbyn supports Hamas. You then report all of that. You don't report the facts. You actually do the PR campaign for them, and you hide all these problems. So what's happening now, and this is so bad that it's got to this point, that this is only going to continue to happen, because until you take it upon yourselves, Didsbury Mosque, after the terrorist attack, I found hate preacher after hate preacher after hate preacher. I found out that Salman Abedi, his dad was part of a terrorist organisation. He went out to fight. He's welcome back. I found out all the money, which is what one of those emails was. It was facts about Didsbury Mosque. What if you want to hold someone responsible? If you want to hold people responsible, sit down with Mr. Hussain, Councillor Hussain, who went into court and gave a character reference for men who took young English girls as sexual slaves and destroyed their lives forever. Yeah, you want to hold someone responsible? He mentions him. So go and interview Mr. Hussain. Why did you give a character reference to Mr. Hussain? And what's happened to you since you gave a character reference? Oh, you've been propelled through the Labour Party. That's what's happened to you since you gave a character reference. If any politician said anything untoward on any other side about Islam or Muslims, they'd have lost their job and they'd never be able to find work again, and you guys would have gone after them and hounded them. So if you want to speak to people about who sits and holds responsibility, sit Mr. Hussain in this seat. Sit the leader of Finsbury Park Mosque, because if he's researched, and he probably found that out as well, Mohammed. Also sit down the owners of Didsbury Mosque, because they're responsible for all the hate and extremism. Do you know, I stood in Manchester after the Manchester attack. I stood there and I found that in the point I was standing at, there were, in the 2-mile radius, were 19 terrorists that had come from that point. That's what you need to be reporting on. You're leaving it to me to report it. And that's why...
I suppose we would argue that we do report this stuff, but we try and do it in a measured way, so that it doesn't...
Politically correct way? I don't need to be measured, man. When 1,400 children have been dragged off the streets, raped, groomed, prostituted by men, and the council have known, the government have known, and everyone's known, there's no need for political correctness or doing it in a measured way. The time for that's gone. The time for telling that, when 22 children are being blown up in a centre by a man who went out of our country to Libya, controlled by ISIS, with ISIS fighters at the time, and was allowed to come back in. Where after that Manchester,
well, you'll see, Will. There's going to be the media has picked up on that. It's reported on that. It's
Okay.
just a question about. I would argue that the question.
Do you know who you need to hold? You're going to sit here. You're going to sit here and try and make that I should feel some responsibility. Whereas what you should.
To be honest, I'm not.
Okay.
But I am going to ask whether.
Well, you should be sitting down. Theresa May should be sitting here explaining why all these people on a watch list, which they were, why they've been allowed to, whilst on a watch list, ran vans and murder people, stab people in their throat, blow kids up. If you want to know who, so the responsibility doesn't bear on me for giving you evidence and giving you facts. Everything I've said, if you was to sit here and say you said this, which was a lie, then I'd hold my hands up. But I've not said one lie. I've reported the truth and the reality of the situation our country's in.
Well, I think that's an honest answer. I think there will be lots of people who would say, yeah, but it's all about how you say it, and you have to be careful.
No, you don't have to be careful. No, as I said, when 22 children get blown up in Manchester, the time for being careful on our words has gone. Okay, they're only words, and the truth is, Islam.
But Darren Osborne didn't go out to try and attack the people who were inviting extremist speakers to Disbury Park.
You need to speak to Darren Osborne about that. That's
but he didn't. He was trying to kill, in his words, all Muslims.
Oh, well, he was alleged to try to kill all Muslims.
Well, that's what he said.
Has he been convicted yet?
No.
No, so he's alleged to.
Yeah, that's what. You're absolutely right. But this will all happen after the trial, if convicted. If not convicted, it would be a different situation.
So the point I'm making is
the guy who is with him in the pub that night says that he said, "I'm going to kill all Muslims."
I have, as I've just told you, in a 4-week period.
And he drives just into a random crowd.
In the 4-week period of that Manchester terrorist attack, which is when you say he was researching my name, 193 million people read my tweets, and 49 million people watched my videos. No one else has gone on a killing spree, buddy.
That's also a good defence.
Yeah, and no, it's not a defence. It's the truth.
But
and the other points, those people who watch my videos. If you listen to what I say in every video, after the Manchester attack, after each attack, I say Muslims are innocent Muslims. Yeah, I say if you abuse a Muslim woman, you're a scumbag. Okay, you're a coward. You attack a mosque, you're a moron. Okay, violence will never solve this. I've been saying that since 2009, since we formed. But the media never report that. What you're going to portray this as, again, is... And one more question. Do you know who Imagine Nawaz is?
Yes.
Okay, so when the BBC introduced Majid Nawaz on any news article, do you write former Hizb ut-Tahrir terrorist, Majid Nawaz?
No, I think we normally see former Hizb ut-Tahrir member.
No, you don't. No, you just say Majid Nawaz. That's my point. You never do that. You never even mention it.
Well, certainly when we used to first interview, we always introduced him as a former Hizb ut-Tahrir member because that was the point of interviewing him at the time.
But he's never known the headline. Say, for example, my headline you've done of me yesterday. Because of these misconceptions and these lies that have happened in court, because they're lies. I've never direct messaged him on Twitter. I've had no personal contact with him.
No, but I mean, the group email is sort of sent in your name.
A group email from a company in Canada, Rebel Media, whether it be sent in my name or not. A group email is very different to saying in a court, which if I read you the headline. The headline said, days before attack, Tommy Robinson sends private direct messages to Finsbury Park killer. Alleged killer.
Private message would definitely not be right. But I think
well, that was
direct email, wasn't it?
That's what the headline said in Russia Today, Metro, Sun. So all of these headlines. Now, if you read that, that implicates me as somehow messaging him and talking to him in a private context from my personal stuff. And because of that, I don't know if you're aware of this, because the BBC reported it yesterday, but because of that, there's a police guard on a family home 10 miles away.
No, we reported it.
You reported yesterday. No, you reported EDL founder. You can't get away from that yourselves. But my point
listen, all of this is stuff that, it's
a grievances that I have.
The best thing that we can call you still at the moment is
found a video because that's for what you're best
If you call me
at.
Tommy Robinson, everyone knows who I am. I'll tell you what you should address me as: anti-extremist worker.
Yeah, but
because that's what
we would get bombarded by people saying, but he's also an extremist if we called him.
But there's no evidence that I'm an extremist. In fact, there's no evidence at all from what you've just read me, which is the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
From what you've just read me, as the justification, the reasons given by Darren Osborne for why he done this, I still can't understand why you're sitting here ready to interview me and plaster my... Or not, I'm not blaming you personally, but I can understand why, because what I believe is that the state and the police have purposely said that there's been social media contact between me. That then gives all of you the licence to involve me, because on the very first day of his trial, when I got home and I turned the news on, I see a big picture of me. And for me, I'm thinking,
what's happened here?
well, hold on, what's going on?
Yeah.
Why am I there?
Well, listen.
Why is the whole country associating me now with Finsbury Park Terrace?
But listen, honestly, nobody tells me what to do
Oh,
on these things.
yeah.
I'm sitting in court,
Yep.
and obviously on the first day, that is a very interesting part of the story. But equally, I've sat through this whole media timeline of what he was doing in the 2 weeks before that, and I still think it's interesting to talk
No, it's
to.
interesting, but
And the
do
reason
you
it's
think...
interesting to talk to you is because the language he uses, the themes he's focusing on, are the same themes that you were focusing on that time.
Well, they would be,
And
wouldn't
I
they?
do think-
My job is to combat radical
Yeah.
extremists from Islam.
Right, you're wrong.
My job is to
I do
highlight these
think
problems.
his political, doesn't mean his violent, but his political frame has been partly set by what you're writing.
No.
And now, because that is the same stuff that he's writing about, is the same stuff that you've been writing about.
No, so, of course, because it's the reality of what's happening. So if
he doesn't know about Al-Quds, he doesn't know about a cancer in Rochdale, which he's sometimes confused with Rotherham. He doesn't. This stuff is he only knows about it because he's reading about it from, I would say, stuff written by you. Or
so do you think in
stuff.
future then? Do you think I should just shut my mouth and not tell anyone what's going on? No, honestly, I'm just asking you as a journalist. Because in case one person out of 200 million people review it,
because that's blatantly not right. Because my profession is exactly that, to tell people what's going on.
But you don't tell people what's going on.
But we don't tell it in the same way.
No, you just don't tell them. Okay, when did you...
So listen, things that I've reported on Islamist extremism. I was the first person to report the existence of al-Muhajirun. I reported on Abu Hamza from long before anyone else had heard of him. I reported on international terrorism from 9/11 and through to 2010. The only reason I stopped reporting out between 2010 and 2014 was because I was reporting out of Russia. Yeah. Since I've been there, the main theme of what I've been doing is reporting on Islamist extremism. I report on Islamist.
That's good. You say Islamist extremism. What does that mean, Islamist?
It means politically inspired Islam, extremism that comes out of politically inspired Islam rather than the religion.
What's the difference between the religion and...
Well, there are many people in the world Muslims in the world who don't regard Islam as being necessarily a political structure. They regard it as a religious structure, just as Christians regard Christianity as a religious structure. There are others, Islamists, who think of it as being...
When was the word Islamist? When was this word created?
Well, partly, it's been around for a long time, but partly it's come into the media's language because they're exactly trying to differentiate from saying all Muslims.
Forget all Muslims. But the problem is, forget all Muslims. Islam. What you should be saying is Islam. But what it's come into the frame.
You see, I think that is exactly where people would say that you're not careful enough.
Now, I have to be careful. You've invented a word so that you don't upset Muslims. You've invented a word. You've created a word.
It's not an invented word.
It is an invented word.
It's been around.
No, it's not. Islam. Whenever anyone spoke about Islam throughout our whole entire history, no one has said Islamist. Okay, this word has now.
No, but I mean,
this word's been created.
Long before anyone heard of Osama bin Laden, the movement that he was part of was an Islamist movement, as opposed to being just Islam.
This is coming
so
to fruition.
Are Sufi Muslims Islamists blatantly?
They follow Islam. No, they follow Islam.
Yeah, but
Sufi
Islam is kind of like. It's the hippie version of Islam,
But it's still Islam, and it's still Islam.
But it's completely different to the kind of guys that you get upset.
Do they follow a different Quran to the guys I'm on about?
They don't, but
same Quran, same Muhammad.
Read the Bible, and there's all sorts of quite violent stuff.
We're not on about the Bible because Christians haven't blown 3 things up. We're not having this conversation because Christians have done anything because of the Bible. We're having this conversation because people have read the Quran. They've took the scripture of the Quran and they've gone and acted upon it. And then what you've done is you you're too cowardice to identify the problem. The problem is Islam. So you've created a word called Islamist so that you feel better about
yourself. That's a political position as opposed to ours, which is to kind of like put facts out there. And I suppose that's the difference, really.
If you want to put facts out, the facts are Islam.
But you're giving it with a political emphasis. I mean, that's your kind of.
No, I just think that. Say, for example, if we go through the history of our country, when William Gladstone spoke and he held the Quran above his head and he said there'll be no peace on this earth so long as we have this book, it's a violent, cursed book. He wasn't talking about Islamists. When Winston Churchill said Islam in a man is like rabies in a dog, he wasn't talking about Islamists. Throughout our whole history, when people said and told the truth, throughout our army generals, previous American leaders, when they spoke about the problems of Islam, that's what they did. You're
very selective in your quotes, and there's lots of people who've said how wonderful Islam is and described it as a religion of peace and so on.
Can you tell me what you think is so great about Islam?
I mean,
no, you can't. What's great about it?
Well, it's like all religions, isn't it?
Is it?
That it gives people a set of moral values,
yeah.
And for many, many people in the world, the moral values that Islam
Are you
gives
aware
them
of the moral value it gives them? Are you aware of the legal age for sex under Islam?
But again,
is it a good moral value to have sex with kids? Is that a good moral value?
But very, very few people teaching in Islam teach about when the sexual age of consent is. That's not.
Have you read the Quran? Have you read the Quran?
Read the Bible, there's people marrying people aged 7.
Have you read the Quran?
Well, I have read the Quran.
You have read the Quran, and you understand the Prophet Muhammad. You read about his life, the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, but you're looking back at a different time in history.
So beheading 600 people, is that a good moral set for us to follow?
Well, we had a king who beheaded how many of his own wives?
Oh, so because the king was bad, it's okay for Muhammad to have been bad.
No, listen, you get the point.
No, I don't get the point, because none of us in this room try and live our life off and believe that the king was perfect. The problem is, Muslims believe that Muhammad was perfect and he is the moral compass for his guide.
But there's many Muslims who wouldn't say, just because of what happened in Muhammad's time in terms of...
That doesn't change the fact about Islam. I'm talking about Islam. I'm not talking about. So what that does is that means we have Muslims that don't follow Islam.
There's multiple versions.
There's multiple
versions of Christianity. There's one Bible.
That argument does not fit in on this point. The point I'm making is with Muhammad, okay? Because the point I'm making is, if you was aware that Muhammad instructed his followers, as it says in the Quran, to take whatever your right arm possesses outside of your four wives, which is sexual slaves. Now, what's happened in Rotherham, what's happened in Rochdale, and all these towns and cities, Muslim men outside of their wives, because we find out they all have wives and kids at home, they then take sexual slaves. They then take what they're permitted by God to take in their scripture, they take them as sexual slaves.
I'm not sure those Pakistani men were really thinking in a religious way.
What way were they thinking? Because why aren't the Hindu men doing it? Why aren't the Sikh men doing it? Why aren't the Jews doing it? Why is no one else taking kids like that in their gangs with their brothers? What they're doing is they're ringing their brothers up, their cousins.
So you're saying that aren't gangs in Britain of guys who are like abusing otherwise paedophiles in their tens of thousands sitting on the internet grooming young children?
Grooming children on their own, yeah. But what we're talking about is men like brothers and work colleagues, like in a taxi. All right, mate, I've got something.
Listen, I completely understand it. The interpretation can be put on it. My issue is I just see that is this is a group of men who think they're living by the Prophet Muhammad's teaching.
Maybe you need to tell them that, because in court they all shout Allah Akbar. One of them, and I'll quote him. One of them said, "I've been commanded by God to do this." These are the quotes by them. Okay, this is their mouths. I've gone through. I don't know if you have, but I've gone through all the transcripts of all their trials to see at which point they use their religion.
But just so Darren Osborne reads your stuff on the internet. You're presumably don't.
He read your stuff actually. Actually, do you? Maybe you should sit here, so the camera's on you, because it was the BBC who done the Free Girls documentary, which we found out was actually the radicalising factor. So if I ask you, do you feel any responsibility for Darren Osborne driving that van into those innocent people?
Well, I don't think that we've at any point exaggerated or inflamed a situation.
Have I exaggerated? Please give me an example of what I've exaggerated.
Well, I'm here to ask you that.
No, give me an example. Because what I found out is that you're as responsible working for the BBC.
What I've noticed and what the court brought to attention is the parallels between what you were writing and tweeting about and what he then says his reasons why he's done.
Brilliant. So tell me what parallel there is with what he wrote in his note and what I've said. Just give me one parallel.
Well, I don't believe he would have known about the Al Quds Day March.
So because I let him know that things were happening.
I don't think he would have
That's the
necessarily never gone on and on about don't look back in anger.
I didn't mention Don't Look Back in Anger. Don't Look Back in Anger was do you know what the Don't Look Back in Anger quote is about? Do you realise it?
I do. There's a Sun front page.
It's a girl singing Don't Look Back in Anger.
Yeah, but
a girl in Manchester at the Remembrance Service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sang Don't Look Back in Anger, an Oasis song.
Absolutely. And you then, when the Sun, on the day before his attack, he was reading you on Twitter, and you posted the Sun front page of the Grenfell Tower. Now comes the anger, and you said, you make some remark about
Don't Look Back in Anger.
When they killed our kids, we were told don't look back in anger or something like that. This
Fair
stuff
enough.
is inflaming,
What, saying Don't Look Back in Anger is inflaming?
Well, I think you get the point. Anyway, listen.
I do get the point. The point is that after Grenfell, we had people inciting violence and smashing up council offices, and the media weren't calling them thugs or hooligans or anything like that. And after Manchester, we had thousands of people marching peacefully through a city centre, and we had the media calling them thugs and hooligans.
Well, were they?
No, they weren't. No.
Were they calling them thugs and hooligans?
Yes, calling them far right racists, all the usual media tripe.
Right. Okay. Well. Yeah. Okay. Well,
People were walking silently. We had a gay speaker, a Pakistani speaker, a black church leader, and you wouldn't know that by the media. By the media's response to it at all. You'd never know that. And this is the point. It's like I have a frustration. You're probably bearing the brunt of it sitting here as a journalist.
Listen, listen. I completely understand it. I do. I completely understand where you are. I actually think that you ought to be more. Personally, I do actually think you ought to be more thoughtful, because you know stuff that seems like a great idea to say can make some nutter do stuff.
Do you think that preachers across our country should be more thoughtful when they're preaching in mosques?
I do. Yeah. Obviously, I've just been reporting on that for 20 years, and for the first time in all of that time, I'm thinking, shit, some people are starting to do the same thing as a result of stuff that's been said by people on the right.
So you really think that he's done this? You really don't think it's because of your BBC documentary of 3 girls and highlights?
Listen, his wife his partner was quite clear about that, which was that he seemed to become politically angry by the 3 girls.
So let's not say people are doing things because of people saying things on the right. Let's say people started doing things because of your journalism and showing people what's happening. Well, that's more the reality. That's what the story you should be telling is.
That is absolutely for you to say.
But no. His wife said it. Not for me to say. His wife told you that. No one has said. No one in all of this, or no evidence has said that he's done it because of me. He said he's done it because of Mr. Hussein, because of the grooming gangs. He said this. What we should have done is what he said.
I am positing. I'm suggesting that exactly that stuff that you've said has influenced him, and you can see it reflected in the language and the topics that he chooses. That's exactly what I am suggesting to you.
What I'm suggesting to you is the Labour Party not sacking Mr. Hussein, the British police not closing down Didsbury Mosque, the government not taking these terrorists off of our streets is what's resulted in it.
Fine. Well, that's a perfectly decent answer.
Yeah,
you say, listen, it's a perfectly decent answer.
And do you know, for years I've said, I remember giving a speech, probably 5 years ago, saying that in 5 years' time you'll have English men blowing themselves up. Yeah? Because in our communities, we're watching as our communities are pretty much being raped and pillaged from one end of the country to the other. We're now watching children be blown up in concerts. And I don't want this. I have 3 young children, and all I want to hand down to them the same safe, prosperous country that our forefathers handed down to us. And I think we have a moral responsibility to try and do that. And by pretending, if I don't talk about these things, by pretending these things are not happening, I'm not doing that. By ignoring the fact that these things are happening, by not highlighting the fact of just how bad the situation we find them in. Because it seems to be that everyone would just like to brush a coat over it and pretend that everything's hunky-dory, multiculturalism works, and we're all getting on great. It's a multicultural love nest that we live in. No, it's not. And I'm going to give people the evidence.
There's plenty of people around who, obviously not particularly in the Labour Party, but there's plenty of people around who aren't pretending that multiculturalism is a love nest. But it is a question about how it's put, isn't it?
No. See, this is the problem. Because it's been a problem
about how it's put. Because it's been a problem about how it's said, is the whole reason why tens of thousands of young girls in this country were allowed to be raped and continue to be raped. Because everyone was scared about how we say it. Oh, you can't say that, you can't say this. Which is why, if you
and
look...
certainly there's a good argument about the investigation of those.
Well, there was no investigation because the police didn't want to be deemed racist. They didn't want to be deemed racist because journalists like yourself are saying, oh, you shouldn't say it like that. Oh, I remember watching Jack Straw sitting on Question Time after he said that white girls were treated as easy meat, and the whole argument, the whole worry of everyone on there was about how he said it.
Yeah.
No one was worried about the fact that these girls, which are our daughters, our sisters, they're our children. I've met families from one end of this country to the other whose daughters have been taken away from them and taken as sexual slaves. No one was even thinking about that. The biggest worry was, well, the Muslims might get upset because of how you've worded that. Well, the Muslims should be upset. If the Muslim community want to be upset, they should be upset because their fellow brothers are walking around our country after fighting for ISIS. Why are they not out on the streets demanding? We see them on the streets over everything else. Why are they not out on the streets demanding action for that? Why are they not out on the streets over all the grooming gangs? As he said, right? He's gave you justification. There was one protest by the Muslim community. He's told you this. Yeah, he's angry because the only time the Muslims decided to protest was over CCTV in their taxis. He's told you that.
But again, who told him?
That was actually reported by the BBC, so you told him that as well.
Well, okay, fine. Listen, let's get this done. I think you completely understand the arguments now, the discussions. I don't think you and I are going to end up agreeing on it, but I think this is the best opportunity
Do you think it's my fault he done this?
I don't know whether he would have got as fired up as he did if it hadn't been for some stuff he was reading. I've no idea.
Okay, let me ask you one more question then.
Or other stuff.
Do you think it's Islam's fault that he did it?
I don't particularly think that.
So you're not sure about me, but the fact that Islam's encouraged all these terrorist attacks.
But clearly, if there was nothing to read about what had happened, what had been done by
these people,
by Muslims, then it wouldn't. That wouldn't have been the target. It would have.
But you're a BBC journalist, man. So you're a journalist. If there was nothing to read about, so if we all just shut up and hide the truth, which has been the agenda of the media in this country.
No, I said if there was nothing to read, but it was. Listen, the three girls did happen. The Manchester and London attacks did happen. So clearly,
I think there's going to be a push now to hide the truth even more. And they're going to use this as a justification and reason for doing it.
I very much doubt that, but I just think there's going to be being a debate about the language being used.
Can you tell me, okay, can I ask you, which part of my language do you think could have been inflammatory? My language, just one example.
Well, I don't think it is one, is it? It's the constant bang, bang,
Can
bang,
you give me
bang,
one
bang.
example? One example.
Well, listen, the things that I think most clearly bring it are not. It's not to do with the language used, but the fact that this is a guy who there's no way he would have known about the Al-Quds Day March.
Okay, so you can't.
And yet you've written.
You
Al-Quds Day March is a revolting stain on London.
It is.
And then every year terrorists fly in London for the Al-Quds March.
Yeah, they do.
Now listen, the Al-Quds March in the end, it's probably
Hamas, Hezbollah flags.
Arranged by Hezbollah flags. Yeah, it's arranged by Iran, really, isn't it? It's kind of like
Iran,
it's
the country
Iranian,
who's the biggest funder of terrorism in the world. So
all
it's their march.
All of which is absolutely valid and is something that the Israeli community.
Did Jeremy Corbyn go on that march?
He did, not last year, but he has.
So Jeremy Corbyn goes on the marches arranged by Iran. Iran are the biggest sponsor of world terrorism. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Let's do it. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, go on.
Be careful. Don't make things worse.
Well, don't use dangerous words.
No. But
say Islamist rather than Islam.
No. Listen,
don't want to upset anyone.
But seriously, from this point, when you start recording, this is stuff that we could broadcast. So
yes. Okay.
Charger. Is it his iPhone? Go on then, don't matter.
What percent you on?
Don't know.
That'd be right to about.
So basically, when you
System.
not so much that, it's just that you do have a tendency to sort of look into the
Looking
it's only when you're getting sort of fired
Yeah.
up. So, but it's just that otherwise, it's just nice. We
Cool.
get nice dialogue.
Yeah,
So,
cool.
And cool.
stand by. Okay. Okay, and turning over.
And just so that we're kind of, to get things clear, if you can give us the name that you'd like to be known by, and also what you kind of think of yourself. I know we've often described you as the founder of the EDL. How you think of yourself, if you see what I mean?
Tommy Robinson, and I'm a anti-Islam activist.
And we often use the
No, actually, I'm a pro-freedom activist.
Okay. We often use the shorthand
Which is
as
the same.
being far right. But do you agree?
Unbelievable, man.
But you don't agree with that?
No, can you? If I ask you, give me what I've ever said or done that puts me and categorises me as far right, because I'm pro-gay rights, I'm pro-gay rights, I'm pro-women rights. Well, actually, you tell me what would.
But I'm asking you. I mean, it's a shorthand that's often used. But
Well, you don't need to. I don't
agree
need to ask me
with
because if you're the one that's gonna, if you're gonna label me as far right, then it's you that needs to answer why I'm far right. So why am I far right?
because you have a tendency to address politics which tends to focus on minority members of the British community, which is
that's not
something
true.
that some far right.
I talk about Islam. I talk about Islam. I have a great relationship with Sikhs. I have a great relationship with the Jewish
Yeah,
community.
I said some.
Okay, so because I talk about Islam, I'm far right.
Well, that's why I'm asking you, really. And you,
And I'm asking you. You need to
just
justify the label. If I talk about Islam, am I far right?
Sorry, Daniel. There's something. Robbie.
It can be if there's
It can
the
be.
way that it's been talked about,
Okay, so-
whether it's focused on.
Cool. So if I talk about Scientology in whatever way I want, am I far right?
Good question.
No, I'm not. Am I? So this label is only attributed because the majority of Muslims for Islam are brown. That's what this label's about. Is it?
Well, no, because people can be far right. You know, if you think the Jewish community,
But I've just
are
asked you.
they're not very bad.
But I've just
People
asked
who
you.
target the Jewish community are very often
Far right, yeah, they are.
regarded as
Yeah,
far
but
right.
I'm not.
So-
I'm pro-Israel.
so-
But as I've just said, if I attack Scientology in any way I want and I talk about it in a very negative view, you won't label me as far right for that, will you?
No, I think you're right. Scientology definitely stands on its own as a cult rather than a religion. But, yeah,
Oh, why is that?
I don't know. That's a very
You don't
long
know?
philosophical.
No. Scientology is
we're getting
less of a cult. You know, in Scientology, let me just go on. You can leave Scientology without them murdering you. Do you know what the punishment for leaving Islam is?
People leave Islam every year without being murdered.
Without being murdered. What's the punishment under Islam for leaving?
Well, under some people's interpretation.
That's nice. Apostasy. Apostasy is punishable by death. That's the cult.
Right, I'm just going to reframe and
Cool.
tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, no, we're good.
And turning over.
So, we're here because during the Darren Osborne trial, the prosecution laid out a case which included a big chunk of internet search history that Darren Osborne had made, a lot of which was searching for your name. They produced a couple of emails that had come out in your name to a group email, one of which was quite clearly sort of anti-Islam in one section, talking about a nation within a nation.
Was there anything in it? Was there anything in the email?
He's read tweets of yours on the day before the attack, and some of the language in his note, talking about specifically the Al-Quds March, focusing on the look back in anger, don't look back in anger, stuff that had come around Manchester. A lot of that reflects stuff that you'd also been saying. Are you at all worried that stuff that you'd said, or the way you put it, might have inflamed Darren Osborne to take him a life?
No, I'm worried that lies have been told about me all week in every national newspaper and media in the country. There's been no Twitter direct messages between me and Darren Osborne. I've never heard of him before this. I've never spoke to him. Okay, that's why I'm worried. And the reason why I'm worried is because I wasn't warned prior to this court case that my name was going to be used at all. Yeah? And since this, I've read messages and threats to murder my children, to murder my wife. That's why I'm worried. Okay? And the things you're talking about, I'd be worried if, can you give me, is anything that I've said not factual or the truth? Can you, any of the stuff I've talked about, because if you're telling me that Darren Osborne has read factual and things that I've mentioned and said, then I will not be apologising for telling the truth at all.
I've not read everything you've ever written or
No,
said,
in the court,
but
in the court
in what he writes in that note in the pub that night,
Yep.
the things which he mentions that are stuff that looks like it's come from you and
Is it
others
factual? Is it
is
factual?
referencing the Al-Quds Day March, which is a fairly obscure march. A lot of focus on this don't look back in anger, some particular focuses on some phrases that Sadiq Khan used in the aftermath of the London Bridge attack. And if you add those all together and look at what you were saying in those 2 weeks and then what he then says in the note, it's very similar. Yes, some of those things, probably all of them, are true, but it's how it's said.
Oh, they're true,
and the question is whether you feel that by kind of aggravating the situation, you might have brought him to this point.
So you think, but have you sat Sadiq Khan down in a seat like this and said, because of your words, it's all part of living in a big city, because of your words, which is clear, because the man gives the reason why he done it is part of this note. Are you going to sit Sadiq down, Khan, and say, because of your words, do you feel any responsibility?
Well, Sadiq Khan was put under a lot of scrutiny when he talked about it's all part and parcel.
No, are you going to ask him?
Big city, but I don't think you could say that that one thing was the thing that drove Darren Osborne to do this attack.
And he tells you what
he
drove
explained, but it's a number of things,
Okay.
all of which were things that you and others have been